Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to this meeting of the Council's Cabinet. It's going to be webcast. I know it's always webcast, but I've got to say it just in case. Now, before we start these proceedings, I need to bring to your attention some housekeeping matters. There's no expected fire alarm testing today, so if the fire alarm does sound, please follow the fire and emergency procedures and leave by the nearest fire exit. Can I ask, please, that you use your microphone when addressing the meeting and that is switched off when you're not? And also, your mobile devices, please, if they could be turned to silent as well. Physician, heal thyself. There we are. So we've one apology today, which is Councillor Coker, and we wish Mark a speedy recovery. Declarations of interest. Do members have any declarations of interest on any of the items today? No. Okay, thank you. Now, moving to item 3 on the agenda, the minutes of the meeting of the 14th of October. Can I sign them as a true and accurate record, please? All agreed? Thank you. Now, item 4, questions from the public. There are no questions from the public today. So we move to Chair's urgent business, which is number 5. Do I have any urgent business, Jamie?
No urgent business today,
okay, plenty of urgent business, but not for this meeting. We move to item 6 then, which is the Finance and Capital Monitoring Report, Quarter 2. Now, this came out in supplement pack, and it's pages 1 to 14 of that supplement pack, okay? So Councillor Lowery, who's the Cabinet Member of Finance, will introduce this report. David Northey, Service Director for Finance, will also be asked some impertinent questions from members. Okay, Mark, over to you.
Good afternoon. So we're looking at month 6, so we're halfway through the financial year, and the revenue position is currently forecasting a potential overspend of some £4.6 million. Now, I know that always sounds like a lot of money, but in respect to our overall net budget, it's about 2%. So it's not all doom and gloom in the engine room. And in comparison to this time last year, I reported a forecast overspend of some £4.7 million. And you'll recall, we did manage to balance our budget at the end of that financial year. So returning to some of the specifics within the report, you will see in section B the revenue forecast in respect of each directorate. And with respect to the Chief Executive's Department, you can see that there's a nil variance there. So well done to everybody involved in that department. Additionally, moving on to Customer and the Corporate Directorate, there's a budget of some £35 million. The current forecast is approximately £36 million. So corporate services are having some pressure, specifically in respect of facilities management and the housing benefits subsidy cap, which is also showing a overspend. So we're working closely with officers and the new appointed Chief Interim Operating Officer and the relevant Cabinet members to ensure that we can bring this into a balanced position at the end of the financial year. You will see when we move on to Children's Services, there is a potential considerable financial overspend in the region of about £7 million this financial year. We are dealing with far more children than we would like to in many respects. But further on in the agenda, there is a specific item in relation to this and the actions that are being taken by Cabinet members and officers in respect to this. So I'm going to leave that as a comment said for the moment, but there is a lot of good work being put into bringing forward additional plans to address this potential overspend in this area of concern. You'll also see from the report that Adult Social Care and Communities Directorate, there is a forecast overspend of some £1.6 million in relation to that. Also, we are seeing far more people requiring our support when it comes to homelessness. So there's a forecast variance of the budget of £0.38 million, so a further £380,000 required there. So to bring this into a balanced position, you will see that in the corporate services department, we have made some drawdown from our contingency reserve to the value of £5.4 million to address some of these overspends. So clearly a lot more work to be done. Potentially the overspend relates predominantly to children's services, but there is a strong mitigation plan in place for that, which we'll discuss in detail later on. The report also covers our capital programme as of the end of September and incorporates the movement from capital forecasts of June 2024 all the way through to 2029, and the current forecast is some £372.669 million. The report sets out the spend profile for each directorate and the funding resources that are set out in Table 2. And as always, the programme is front-loaded to reflect the level of certainty of projects and the associated costs in the very early years. The 5-year programme is some £91.9 million in forecast and is funded predominantly by corporate borrowing, which equates to some 24.7%. The affordability of the capital programme is always an issue for us, and I can assure all cabinet members and officers that we're reviewing that as we go. So, a little bit good news in respect to our treasury management costs. We do have borrowing as a council. Of course, the reduction in interest rates last year announced by the Bank of England is good news for us, and will result in further savings in our borrowing costs, which I should be able to report further in the year. I think that's all I've got to say, and I'm sure David would like to add his views.
Thank you very much indeed, Mark. David, anything to add?
Thank you, Leader. As always, a full and comprehensive update from Councillor Larry. Just a couple of things. I think you made the point very clearly that we are halfway through the financial year, so we are still 4.6 million adrift, so we've clearly got lots of work still to do. But I think we've updated this cabinet before about actions that have been taken, led by the Chief Exec in particular, to every member and every officer within the council about making every pound count. So there are lots of savings that are coming forward. Unfortunately, they take a little time to come through, so they haven't hit the books in time for this report, but certainly by the time we get to December and the end of Q3, I would be expecting to see quite a substantial reduction in that overspend. And then, as I keep saying, if we're sort of within touching distance at that point, we can push on in the last quarter to get us to that balanced position by the end of March. Thank you.
Thanks, David. Are there any questions from members? I mean, the thing is, what people need to understand is that this isn't the first time we hear about these numbers, because the Cabinet are constantly working on their own bits of the council, as it were, in terms of trying to keep costs down and having conversations with staff about keeping the costs down. So what we do here really is the end of that cycle of investigation. We start again now today and going back around to try and make sure that we keep on track. We're all okay then. So all that we've got to do today is to agree that we have a number of recommendations. So it's note the forecast revenue position, note that senior officers will continue to work with Cabinet to reduce the forecast overspend. Note the capital budget is revised to 372.669 million, and agree that it's recommended to full council for approval, and note the prudential indicators for Q2. So I'm going to ask you all to show in the usual way. All those in favour, please show. Thank you very much indeed. And the council meeting is later in a couple of weeks today, yeah. Okay, so we move on now to item 7, which is another financial item called the medium-term financial strategy. And this is 2024-25, although we're already in the middle of that. and it goes out to 28, 29. And again, Mark is here. He'll introduce the report and then we'll hand over to David Norley. So Mark?
Thank you, Chair. There's a very comprehensive report before you, and the purpose of this is to give our commitment about being open and transparent, and so everybody understands where we are with the budgets for the many years ahead. And so the forecast that I previously referred to back in June of this year, or July in fact it was, we showed an initial gap of some £17 million. So a lot of work's been done over the last few months with officers and cabinet colleagues, and today we're presenting a revised gap of some £3.8 million. So a tremendous amount of good progress, and thank you to everybody for their tremendous hard work in achieving this substantial reduction. This is also very contingent upon the previous conversation, of course, we've just had in relation to our budget this financial year. And of course, you'll recall me saying that there's a £4.6 million budget variance potentially there at the moment. So if we continue to work hard and balance this year's budget, it will make it a lot easier in producing this financial plan as we go forward. I would draw members' attention to page 25 of my papers, which is the autumn budget, and David and the officers have put a lot of work into setting out there the detail that was contained within the budget last week announced by the Chancellor. And whilst I'm not often in a position to be able to say there's some good news there, there is on this occasion some good news. So if you refer to section 6.2, for instance, there is a real term increase in the core local government spending power of around 3.2% in 2025 and 2026, including at least £1.3 million of new grant funding, of which £600 million will be new grants to support social care. And if you continue to read through the report, you can see there are lots of other initiatives that have been announced by the government that will hopefully provide us with some assistance in dealing with some of the principal areas of key concern. Homelessness, for instance, disabled facility grants, our core budget for schools. And of course, there's also been an announcement around business rates and fairer funding. So as a city where we have a number of challenges, it'd be hoped that in the future we'll get some more money to assist with these areas. Additionally, of course, you'll know that the Labour government's proposal is to move away from a one-year government settlement to a 3-year government settlement. And that, of course, gives us an opportunity to see what money we've got and plan around that in the future. So this is very much a dynamic document and will be amended as we go, particularly around the latter part of this year, because we'll get the financial settlement with respect to our budgets in just before Christmas, which will help us tremendously and be able to update this budget and, of course, set our budget for the next financial year. So this report will go to full council and will go to scrutiny. And as I say, it's very much a dynamic document, so it'll be updated consistently throughout the year so we can see where we are and we can plan ahead. Thank you, Chair.
That's great. Thank you very much. David, is there anything that you would like to add, please?
Thank you, Leader. Thank you again, Councillor Larry, for that comprehensive update. I'm always the voice of doom and gloom, I think. So there are a couple of unknowns that we're still working our way through in terms of the budget announcement. The most serious, I think, is this announcement about the changes to national insurance and what impact that might have on us as a local authority. So there seems to be some conflict between whether we are going to get a grant to cover that or whether we are expected to use that from some of the grant that Councillor Larry's just referred to. But overall, it is good news. There were some extra funding coming forward. I've just come off a meeting with our colleagues in Sagoma. They pointed out quite correctly that the way that Christmas falls this year, and I say this every year, I might get an early Christmas present in terms of government recess and when they need to publish the provisional settlement. So the detail will be contained in there, so we won't have the final numbers until we get to sort of the middle of December. But again, I'm promised, not from the ministers, but from MHCLG, a briefing note towards the end of this month, which might give us a steer as to of the direction of travel. But overall, that was good. In terms of the MTFS itself, Leader, you're quite right. We're halfway through the first period. But again, as Councillor Larry said, that has a huge impact on the numbers going forward. And of course, the further you push into the future in terms of financial numbers, the less reliant we can be on them. But again, it's pleasing to hear that we are expected to get multi-year settlements, which will help us plan going forward. So overall, we've moved from 17 million back in July to just under 4 million at this point. So I think we're in a very strong position again to move on to a balanced position. Leader, thank you.
Thanks very much for that, David, and thank you, Mark. I mean, obviously, it's a financial document, but it also speaks to the priorities of this council. That's really important. I mean, this is the first one of these that we've had in place for a little while. When we finally agree it, I should say, it will be the first time we had one in a little while. And it's always been an impossible job for local authorities, if you think about it, having to produce 4 or 5 year financial plans with an annual budget process of the government. So the move to the 3-year plan is very welcome indeed, and not before time. So pleased to see that pledge that was made to local government at the election being fulfilled. It probably doesn't, you know, for most people, it wouldn't matter a fig, but actually for us, being able to have a bit of financial certainty is really important, not least for being able to move money around, to have the certainty going forward of being able to move money between years and blocks, to invest in investor-safe projects, for example. Again, that kind of headroom and that kind of forward knowledge is really important. There's been some, as you both said, there's been some welcome news in the budget. The uplift in national insurance, of course, is to invest heavily in the public sector. I mean, it's not taxing for the sake of it. It's actually to repair some huge damage to our public services, which systemically and sustainably for the last 14 years, we've been playing a game of how small can we make the government. And that's, I've said it before, but small government means holes in the road. It means no flowers in the flower beds. It means rationing social care for older people. That's what small government means. The services that councils provide are the ones that are most valued in the main by local communities. So again, the beginning of a corner turning in terms of the value of local government as seen by the government is very welcome. I think we can welcome the fact that the government made some very good announcements around homelessness and the support for the hospitality industries, though again, causing perhaps local authorities problems with the relief. Actually, for retail, hospitality and leisure businesses, of which we have a considerable number in the city, that relief is very welcome, I know. I think we look forward now to the comprehensive spending review and see what happens in the spring. We're waiting for David's early Christmas present, although he probably knows now what Santa's bringing. It's probably all out here already. What is going to? There probably won't be any more surprises before Christmas, but nevertheless, what this plan does is set a new course for us. I'm hoping that the reform to the funding formula that was described by Angela Rayner at the Local Government Association conference and reinforced by Jim McMahon, the Local Government Minister, which is that we're going to move to a more needs-based formula. Back in the olden days, the government used to redistribute the money through on the basis of deprivation. So places like Plymouth where most people are in bands A, B or C for council tax. Because there are so few people in the upper levels of council tax in this city. And there are a lot of places like that around the country where there's a lot of people in those lower bands of tax, council tax, but they're paying disproportionately more. And ironically as well, those areas tend to be those who rely on those sort of services, like the children's care and the other social care, the most. So if the government can deliver this turnaround, I think it'll be good news for council taxpayers here. But more importantly, I guess, it'll be good news for everybody who relies on services that we provide in the community. Okay, unless anybody wants to add anything, shall I put it to the vote? The recommendations is we have approve and recommend the medium-term financial strategy to the council for the 25th of November. Okay, so this is our decision to take it to the council because it's ultimately the council's decision. Okay, all those in favour of doing that? Thank you very much. Now I move on to item 8. Ruth is joining us by the miracle of the interweb. Hello, Ruth.
Hello.
Hello. So this is on pages 19 to 128. Yes, I kid you not. It's 100 pages of joy. And Ruth is going to tell us all about this very quickly. So good luck with that, Ruth. It's called A Decade of Impact, A Future of Possibilities. So I'm going to begin by asking Councillor Mary Aspinall, who holds the Cabinet portfolio for health and adult social care, to introduce it, and then we'll hand over to Ruth. Okay? Thank you. Mary, take it away.
Thank you, Leader. I'm delighted to introduce the Thrive Plymouth report, which doubles as Ruth's Director of Public Health's report for this year. As you know, Thrive Plymouth is the citywide approach to tackling health inequalities across the city. It has now been 10 years since the initial programme was launched, and this paper talks through some of its successes and the challenges still to come. At an earlier cabinet, we gave Ruth the direction to continue Thrive Plymouth, which was initially to be a 10-year programme. Although some successes have been made, this has been a difficult decade for all of us. With a global pandemic, a decade of austerity and a cost of living crisis, and the fight to tackle health inequalities continues. I am pleased to say that this report sets out for the next 10 years for Thrive Plymouth. I will hand over to Ruth to give further information. Thank you, Ruth.
Thank you very much. Hopefully you can see me. Let me just move to screen show, and then you should be able to see the slides properly as well. There. Thanks ever so much. Thank you for your time. And I apologise that the report was rather long. We've included everything that you could possibly need to know about Thrive, but we're afraid to ask within the papers. But you'll be pleased to know I am just going to give a very quick summary today. So as Councillor Aspinall said, the 10-year plan was first launched in November 2014. And the plan there was to tackle chronic diseases and inequalities in life expectancy that we were seeing across the city. It was aimed at being a social movement. So the idea was to get as many people across the city as possible, as many organisations as well as individuals interested in tackling health inequalities, to see what could they do to contribute, to try to tackle them, and what was the sort of system-wide action that we could take. We deliberately didn't do a public campaign. So if you were to stop a member of the public on the street and ask them if they knew about Thrive Plymouth, they probably wouldn't. And the reason for that is that when you do public campaigns, you tend to find that the people that are most able to look after their health are the people that respond to that. And so we wanted to work across the city, looking at the things that we could change, the infrastructure that support people, to make sure that everybody was supported to have a healthier life and a healthier life expectancy. And initially, of course, it was structured around 4454, which some of you may remember, which was the fact that the mathematical fact, really, that 4 things that we might do in our life lead to 4 chronic diseases that accounted for over half of the deaths in the city. But we did quite quickly move away from that way of looking at it, and we started to look at the positives. This is a programme about how people can thrive in the city. As I mentioned, or as Councillor Aspinall mentioned in the introduction, health inequalities are linked very much to external factors. And obviously, getting through a COVID pandemic, getting through a really difficult period for the public sector, and of course, the cost of living crisis that's affected so many of our population has really added to the challenge. And obviously, we've seen trends in England that have been mimicked to some extent across Plymouth. But we have seen in Plymouth that we've managed to minimise some of those negative trends, which is really good. Um, Through Thrive Plymouth, we really started to understand that this was way beyond what people do and the lifestyles that they lead, and was much more about those wider determinants of health. How easy is it to lead those healthier lifestyles in the places that we live? We also really acknowledge the complexity of the lives that people are living in, and the need for us to really understand the complexity that we have and how we live, how we work, how we play, and how all of those factors interact. It really isn't enough to just say to people, you should drink less, you should move more, you should stop smoking. You have to support them in how they can do that. And we aimed at really getting a lot of people across the whole city to understand their role in helping people in that. The programme was structured around annual themes, as you can see from there. And part of the point of that is that we brought a different group of people in to our social movement with each of the themes. Obviously, you'll notice there was a little bit of a blip, and that, of course, was around the pandemic years where the work of many of us across the city was really just focused around helping people to deal with that. And we picked back up with Thrive Plymouth, and as you can see in those last few years. So a quick slide on some of the successes. We've got Wellbeing at Work Awards. We've now got 195 organisations across the city that are engaged in those. We've got 84 schools and the Healthy Child Quality Mark, which is about making a school a really healthy place for your child. Plymouth Community Homes have joined with us in a New Home, New You package. That means that people moving homes or moving into a Plymouth Community Home or from one to another are supported with that, with a whole range of support around health improvement, with the view that actually it could be a really good point in your life that you might want to make some positive changes in your health. We've had a health improvement running, One U Plymouth, which is run by Live Well Southwest and is our health improvement offer, where we've done some really great work there around helping people to stop smoking. We have opened a whole range of wellbeing hubs across Plymouth, as you'll know, mainly focused around our most deprived areas, supporting people who need that help. We've done some work on mental health and wellbeing, talking about the 5 ways to well-being. And of course, we really promoted that quite heavily during the pandemic when we knew that people's mental health was struggling considerably. We've achieved the Sustainable Food City Silver Award across the city with the support of Food Plymouth, which is fantastic. And we had a real focus around the healthy element of that. The volunteering service that sprung up during COVID has been enhanced and reinforced and has actually continued through our community empowerment programme. We've also worked on being a compassionate city, understanding and responding to lived experience and recognising the trauma that people have faced or may have faced in their lives and how that can shape some of the choices that we make. We've developed a whole team of community builders who are out there working in our communities, helping people in our communities to connect into some of the services that are offered around there. And also done work on cold and damp homes with that understanding of how that can impact people and their enjoyment, and even their physical and mental health. A few quotes here, which you'll be pleased to know I'm not going to read out, which demonstrate from some of our partners how it has helped them in the work that they do in trying to promote and tackle health inequalities. And some slides around impact. So there is obviously a lot more you'll see in the report, but in general, we've had some really positive changes. So our smoking rates have improved. Some of the healthy behaviours in children and young people have increased. Our mortality rates for those 4 key diseases have dropped, but there are still inequalities. Life expectancy has slightly improved. We are still behind England, but we have actually caught up slightly. And similarly with healthy life expectancy, we've seen a really strong improvement for men, and we are as good as England, if not slightly better. But we're still a little below for women at the moment, and the reasons for that are not totally clear. We do have higher rates of diagnosed depression, but other indicators around mental health are similar to the national average. And it's possible that by promoting discussions about mental health, that we've just increased the diagnosis rate, which could be a positive thing. So our refreshed approach, which we're going to be launching officially on the 28th of November, we're widening the construct to look at healthy body, healthy mind, healthy places, and healthy communities. So that's really recognizing the impact that all of those things have on us, on the lives that we lead, and the choices that we make. Around the healthy body issue, this will still pick up on smoking. Smoking is the biggest change you can possibly make for your health. On alcohol, or not drinking too much alcohol, on healthy diets, and on physical activity. Just moving is so good for our health. Healthy mind is particularly looking at mental health support, particularly that sort of community level, population level of mental health support. And also working with those people who do have some complexities in their life. And we know that mental health can be a really key part of that. How do we support people? And then linking into our Aging Well programme with support around dementia. Healthy places, that is about access to nature, making sure that your neighbourhood, the place that you live in, is safe and feels safe to you. Good places to work, good transport and housing, education and skills, money and resources. All of those things that we talk about in those wider determinants of health, about the place that you live in. And then around healthy communities. Communities are so important for tackling loneliness, for being socially connected to the places that you live in. Volunteering fits under this, and much of our community engagement programme as well. So by this new refreshed approach, we're really able to articulate all of those elements that build up to create healthier places for us to live in and healthier lifestyles. We've also come up with a range of principles, and obviously this has all been done in consultation. And the first one is together. We work together in Thrive Plymouth. The sum of the parts is much, much greater than just the work of the public health team. This is across the whole city. It's human-centred. We understand that people's lives are complex and that sustainable change can take quite a long time. And it isn't always a straightforward path either. There's ups and downs in that journey. We're respectful. We respect everybody. We're an inclusive network, and we value people and try to give them an equal voice when we're talking about the sorts of changes that we might be looking at doing. Obviously, we are focused on inequalities. We want to reduce health inequalities and ensure health equity. We're versatile. We keep learning. We recognise new things, and we will work together to provide a space so that we can explore and try new things and understand what works and what doesn't work. And this can be quite this can need to be quite well tailored to different groups of people to understand what really works for them. And we are evidence-based. We are rooted in evidence. We want to understand whether what we do is working or not, and whether it's a good use of our resources. Obviously, Thrive Plymouth continues to be strategically aligned with the Plymouth Plan. The Plymouth Plan is essentially a policy, a health in all policies approach that makes sure that inequalities is at the heart of everything that we do. We also work closely with NHS Devon and all of our NHS colleagues, and so we are well linked into their strategic alignment. And obviously, climate change is also something that we are really wanting to pick up as we look for the next 10 years of Thrive Plymouth. So we are now in the process of launching the new 10 years of Thrive Plymouth, celebrating success, adding new people to our network, and talking about the future of Thrive Plymouth, and exploring some of those the actions that we need to take to actually deliver on what some of our goals are. You can see from the reports that we're building a monitoring and evaluation framework, which is much more complex than the one that we used before, and looks at some of those complexities that we've talked about using something called ripple effects mapping. We're updating the website, And we're doing a lot of work around that evidence-based working. How do we really get the most of what we're doing and learn and spread spread that learning, share that learning. And obviously planning for the future, we are looking at the themes. We'd still like to use a thematic approach each year. And we're looking at some of those early themes which will link with Plymouth City Council's strategic goals. So things like ageing well and community building and community empowerment are all part of that. So thank you very much for your time. I will stop sharing and take any questions.
Terrific. Thank you very much indeed, Ruth, for that run through a lengthy report with lots of interesting data in it, I thought. Mary, have you got anything you want to add before I open it up to the rest of the Cabinet?
Leader, I think it just shows you how that if we work as a council together, we can help improve the lives of Plymouth people and their health, whether that's physical or mental health. And I think, you know, I really urge that we do carry on with this cross-cutting theme, because it seems to have worked, and we seem to be accumulating a lot of data which is going to help our way forward, whether that's in the facilities we have, whether that's in the way our staff work. And to me, it's got to be exciting now that we're moving forward, we're going to the next step, and there's still a few of those things to crack, basically. We need to be looking at women's health, and particularly as to why we've got that blip. But it's good that a lot of the other figures are rising. So thank you to Ruth and her team and everybody that's been involved, whether, you know, it's adults, children, customer services, whoever. They have all worked to make this improvement. So a big congratulations to all of them.
Thanks very much. I mean, I don't know whether I misread this, but that article in the paper that said that the quality of women's health was going down. But I can't make sense of that in the context of the report on the figures on page 52, which indicates that it's moving in the right direction.
I think this is what Ruth was saying, was that conundrum that we're trying to unpick more details. Ruth, can I leave that with you?
Yes, it is moving in the right direction, but my expectation is that we're striving to be closing the gap between England and ourselves, and that is what we've seen with men's healthy life expectancy. Now, the actual number, the length is going up, it is increasing, but the gap between England and ourselves is larger than I'd like it to be. So there's two things we're interested in. One is whether we're seeing an actual real improvement with as time goes by, but the other one is how are we relative to England and relative to other areas that have similar statistics to us, and that isn't as good as I would like it to be. There's a lot of emerging work that's going on to try to understand some of why that might be, and there is some evidence that talks about coastal cities and some coastal places and towns and cities do have some particular features that may be contributing to that, but it's not completely clear. But as I say, we've seen this huge improvement in men's healthy life expectancy in Plymouth. I'd like to see the same in women's.
Okay, I mean, picking up on that thing around coastal communities, okay, I mean, you know, we're part of the Key Cities network, and there's quite a bit of work going on at the moment on coastal communities, generally speaking. So can we make sure that we keep them in the loop about any work that might be about and any information? Plymouth University is a member of the Key Cities University Network as well, so it would be worth. There are other people who can help us with the research, is what I'm trying to say there. Okay, any views or any questions, Mark?
Ruth, I was wondering, there's obviously a lot of improvements, but obviously there's some really scary statistics around obesity within the report, particularly in reference to children, the disparity across the various wards. I wonder if you can give us a little bit more detail about what some of the actions were taken to address some of those issues, please.
Yes, it's a really tricky issue, and that you'll see there's a very, very clear link with deprivation. Now we're doing many of the things that many other areas are doing. We're trying to make schools healthy places. We've been quite forward in things like planning, in our planning laws. As you probably recall, some years ago, maybe 5, 6 years ago, we put in a planning clause that we wouldn't open more fast food takeaways within a certain distance of schools, and that was one of the, at the forefront of some of the national policies at the time. So we're trying to do things like that. We're working on trying to make schools as healthy as we can, obviously working with Catered around some of that. And the Food Sustainable Cities Award is partly around healthy access to healthier food as well. But it is a very big issue. And one of the pieces of work that we've been doing over the last 6 months to year or so is really trying to understand what happens within communities and how we can help to make places healthier places to live in, because it isn't as simple as just saying, don't eat so much, or provide more vegetables. So we've done quite a lot of work in really understanding what are the drivers that mean that some families do struggle with their children, carrying excess weight, and what can we do to try to support them in that? There's some really interesting and really good emerging work around that. In how, for example, Riverside School's been working with us to make sure that there's a wider range of activities that are available, and also sort of bringing parents in to the conversation as well, so we can help them with healthier meals. But it really isn't as simple as just make sure that everybody knows they should eat more healthily. It's really complex. So we're trying to get to the heart of that. And there is obviously a balance here between something called the commercial determinants of health. So, big companies out there want to sell us sugary, fatty foods because it's very cheap. And people who are perhaps in a not don't have a huge amount of money will go for foods that are easy to buy, that are easy to eat, where they know that their child's probably going to eat them, where they don't go off quickly, for a myriad of reasons. But obviously, of course, nobody, there's I think I'd be accused of being the nanny state if we were to say that, no shops are going to sell those foods, and there's no way that could be enforced. So it is a really, really difficult balance. So we are working on it, but there's nobody across the world has the easy answers to this. And so it's a question of us continuing that work, I think.
Okay, Mark?
Yes, Ruth, I agree with you, and it's just a dimension that seems to have changed in the past couple of years. We all know, we all see Just Eats and Deliveroo, and I went to stay with someone recently who had the breakfast delivered to their house, which is just phenomenal. And of course, you can get all your shopping delivered in your house, so your mobility issues become less easy to address as well. So I just wonder whether we're in a changing landscape, so we need to have a changing thought process around how we tackle this issue going forward. So I'll leave that with you to have a think about, because it's an incredibly complex subject.
Thank you. Sally?
I just wanted to add a bit to that. Well, one is that I'm just really pleased to see the number of schools who signed up and did the Healthy Child Quality Mark, something dear to my heart when I was working in school. But also, I think it's probably worthwhile. I think this is also something that is going to have the terms of children and nutrition is going to have a sort of like multi-pronged approach, and it's going to be chipping away. But one of the things that I think is really positive is that the government is going to be introducing the breakfast clubs for primary school age children. And those have there's really important factors there, both in terms of, it's not just about the breakfast and having a good start to the day in terms of breakfast, but it's also all that social interaction, having a strong start in terms of being ready to learn, and having a strong start in terms of those social interactions, which will all combine together. Bit of a tautology that, in order to make a good start to school, help with learning, lots of opportunities to do, lots of education in terms of breakfast as well, in that start to the school day. So I think there's lots of things that need to sort of come in, and that's probably one, only a small one, but one which I think will have an impact.
Chris?
Thank you, Leader. I think what we've got here is how important early intervention and prevention is. That we need to engage earlier, and we need to engage at community level, not just hope that a big late programme is suddenly going to change things. And that's it never does. And we've got something that's really good and we've been doing for a long time. And that's not common in local government. And I think hats off to Ruth and her team and her predecessors who've kept us on a journey of looking at those big things, because it's difficult, especially when budgets are tight, to do things that are hard to measure and where you can't actually say this impact is because of that action, but you can see overall. And we've got some proxy measures. They're always the best that they can be. It's always really difficult. But I wondered whether there is something here that can be packaged in a shorter way to be able to help lobby at a national level for why what we're doing is really good and why we need additional resource to tackle the particularities of Plymouth that aren't the particularities of Devon and Cornwall, and why we need that additional funding. Because it's not just the need, but actually we can show how, because of actions we're taking as a whole council and increasingly as a system, we are changing things in Plymouth better than the way they are going nationally, and that is worth investing in long term to learn some more. So I just thought, let's not just keep this to ourselves, but what could we do more by using this to encourage more resource into the city?
Well, I'm sure condensing 100 pages of report into a couple of sides of A4 will be a significant weight loss reduction program. But we're not scared of the challenge. I think there's another thing here, though. Sorry, the elephant in the room, which about the backdrop of this, Ruth. I mean, I keep coming back to this. The current funding for public health rewards the City of London with all their stockbrokers, tall buildings, and no poor people, more per capita than a deprived community like Plymouth. And until that changes, our job's going to be really difficult. In addition, if I could call the mainstream health service in the form, and the glorious form of the integrated care board, again, restricts the amount of money that is spent in Plymouth on everything, pretty much, including dentistry. So, I keep saying this, but if kids can't chew the food, they're going to go for the soft option. And actually, some of the foods that they need to eat are a hard option or a tougher option than some of the stuff they have to eat because eating's too painful, or they're off school, or whatever it is. So, I think in that invitation you just made, Chris, I think it's got to be accompanied by an appeal for a better form of funding for us, not just in public health terms, but in health terms generally. Because I think, given the underfunding that we have had, I think this also needs to be seen in relation to that underfunding that we have had, endemic underfunding that we have had for the last 10 years, right? And it makes what has been achieved by the team all the more remarkable, I would say, given that backdrop, Mary, right? but I think we cannot, it's look at us, we're doing well. Is look at us, look how much better we could have done had you not been tying both hands behind our back and both our legs together, which is what the system of funding for health in this city is at the moment. So that's an appeal that I think we need to make. Anyway, we're not being asked about that today. And Sue, you were mentioning it earlier, a conversation before the meeting started about the role of sport in all of this stuff. I mean, have you got anything to offer in that?
Strangely, I have. I think this plan has been quite a dynamic strategy. It hasn't stood still. So a couple of years ago, we developed the Active to Thrive plan, which is a plan which sits as part of the whole Thrive agenda. And I think when Ruth was talking earlier, she was talking about collaboration across the city. When we look at how we deliver the Active to Thrive plan, it's a really good example how the city comes together to work together. So, for instance, sitting under that, I could talk about promotion and how we promote active travel. I could talk about all the stuff we do at Poole Farm when we're encouraging people to go up there and get in touch with green spaces. I could talk about the Horizons bid and how we're making sure that children get access to the sea and all the swimming lessons and everything we do underneath that. I could talk about the collaboration work that goes on between Plymouth Active Leisure and the YMCA and Plymouth Argyle Community Trust, which I will expand on later at a little announcement. You can hold that one there. But how we're working with wellbeing hubs to make sure that people we know want to be more active, to be healthier, we are getting out into those communities. And I don't think we could have done that collaborative work without having this plan sitting above us. And I could talk about the Age and Well agenda. We've got specific programs where we're trying to encourage children to be more active and continue active. We're looking at how we can get girls and women to be more active in sport. We're looking at how we can get into some of our different communities across the city. It's really wide reaching. And so I think, we do need to be commended for this because we are delivering a lot with very few resources, but with a lot of goodwill and partnership work across the city.
Amen to that. Mark, yes.
I'm going to go once more. I mean, you recall at the very beginning of this meeting, we talked about a revenue budget and 110 million from memory and 80 million for children's services. 75% of all our budget is being spent on helping people, looking after people. And if you read this report, over and over, the prize is huge. Even in housing, for every £1 invested in housing, you save £2 in care and need and health outcomes. So, yeah, if we can get the government to continue to give us extra money for housing and change that agenda, the revenue budget is going to be immensely impacted financially in a positive way, which we haven't seen for 15 years, and we can start to turn that ship around really. So it's good stuff, but we just need to pick up salient points out of this and keep knocking on those doors and keep getting that money.
Yep, we will do, and you're absolutely right. I mean, a nice, warm, dry house does wonders for health outcomes. So we'll continue to promote warm, dry, new housing, won't we? Yeah, I think we will. It's the right thing to do. Anyway, on page 19 of the report, we've got the recommendations. I don't want to read them all out because it's very long, but they are recommendation 1 and recommendation 2, A, B, and C. But it's all about, as Mary said, carrying on, but in a slightly different way. But also recognising that the last 10 years has been a success in spite of some challenges, I think is fair to say. Shall we then show in the usual manner whether we agree or not? All those in favour, please show. Thank you very much. That seems to be unanimous. So thank you, Ruth. There we are. We shall now move on to number 9. By the way, the Ruth over the report bit there was quite nice. That wasn't it? How did we do that? That was very good. That was very good. If I could do that again, whoever did it and however it was done, it brought it to life. You know, yeah. So we're going to move on now to item 9, which is some of you might have seen pens and cards on your table, but pages 129 to 142. This is so. Jemima Lang is going to introduce this, and we've got Karen and Vivian here as well, who will be fielding any questions that you might have, or presumably taking any plaudits. Over to you.
Yeah, don't steal my thunder with the props. They're for the next item. Oh. So I hope that avid viewers to Plymouth City Council Cabinet will be able to see that the work we've been doing to create a robust, comprehensive and supportive environment for our fostering community. And to that end, we've developed a new and improved support and retention offer for 2024-2025. This initiative was properly co-designed with our foster carers during the first Fostering Summit, which was held on January 31st, 2024, and which I've talked about quite a lot here. The summit brought together over 45 participants, including foster carers, elected members, and key stakeholders from Children's Services. The summit provided a valuable platform for foster carers to share their experiences, their feedback, and ideas, which have been instrumental in shaping our support strategies. We don't want to just talk about it, we want to show that we mean it. And our foster carers have told us that they feel listened to, they feel heard and respected as a result of this process. Key themes discussed include financial, practical and emotional support, as well as training and development opportunities for both foster carers and for staff. This new financial offer, which was implemented from April the 1st, 2024, includes a 6% uplift in the fostering allowance and the introduction of a council tax allowance, and that part of the offer has already come to Cabinet. Our commitment to supporting foster carers is reflected in our comprehensive support and retention offer, which is before you, which aims to ensure good communication, practical and emotional support, and continuous training and development. We are dedicated to listening to and valuing the voices of our foster carers, ensuring that they feel respected and supported in their vital role. So the updated, reshaped offer based on what foster carers told us is before the Cabinet for your endorsement. Thank you, Leader.
Okay, thank you very much, Jemima. Anything to add, either of you, both of you?
Councillor Lang has summarised that report beautifully. There's not much for me to add. I think the only thing that I would want to really draw out is the feedback from our foster carers directly. So the title of this document is Our Commitment to You, and that's been co-designed with them. The finances are important. Children, especially traumatised children, cost money to look after, of course they do, but their message is your commitment, our commitment, and that of the wider community makes fostering a much easier job, even though it's still very challenging. And so that's the sentiment, and the agreement was that it's a commitment. It's more than just the financial. And they fed back, the foster carer ambassadors on behalf of the fostering community fed back at a recent event, which I'll speak about shortly, that they felt for the first time really heard and listened to, and that the response to that in your endorsement of the financial changes and wanting to hear this from them has felt really different. And they expressed their thanks directly to Councillor Lang on that day, and have asked that we express their thanks to you for listening, hearing and responding to their wishes and feelings. I think that's the only thing I'd want to add.
Well, it's really pleasing to hear that back from them. But I think we need to say this again, is I think one of the great resources we have in this city is our army of foster carers. What they do, obviously, you know, we talk about the way in which they perform for us in terms of our outcomes, but actually it's the transforming of lives that they do, which is the most valuable thing, I think. And so I just want to make sure that, you know, we can't say that often enough, really, you know. But words is nice. So what's good about this paper is it does represent some progress for them, addressing some of the concerns that they've had, and we hope that that'll encourage more people, which we're going to talk about in a minute, aren't we? But fantastic, fantastic work they do. We've got a recommendation here to endorse this. So we do this today. It doesn't have to go to council. Once this is enacted today, it can start. Oh, that's great. Anybody want to add anything? Mark Lowry. Sorry, Mark.
Is it our intention to do this annual summit annually? Yes.
Yep, they've asked for that, so we're already planning the January event. This year will be bigger, so last year we did the summit on one day. It happened to be right in the middle of our Ofsted inspection, so it was a bit of a challenge, but this year it will be a week of events, so we will have the summit with our foster carers, but alongside that, an event with children and young people to ensure their views are included, some work with our partners through corporate parenting operational groups, and also we hope that that's the week we'll be able to do our celebration event with foster carers, so that it becomes a real celebration, as well as to recognise the hard work that they've put in. And the plan will be in January or early February.
In talking to David, we had a long discussion previously around the business community wanting to really help in this sector. So will there be opportunities for them to engage with that week long, so we can understand how they can support foster carers more as well, please?
Yeah, more in the second paper, but yes, so by partners I mean our partners who are working with our children and our foster carers, but also our business and our community partners, very much so.
Yeah, we'll hear a bit more about that in a minute, won't we? Okay, great. Any other comments or questions before we? Just great, isn't it? So yeah, I think I'll put it to the vote now, if that's all right. All those in favour of a recommendation on page 129, please show. Thank you very much. It's carried. Thank you. Okay, so we now move to Foster for Plymouth recruitment, where the pen and the card do come in. Again, Jemima will lead on this item, and Karen and Vivienne are still here to answer any questions. So over to you, mate.
Yeah. Thank you, Leader. So, yeah, we've got a plethora of props, which we'll come to in a minute, and we're also going to show a film. But I'm just going to quickly introduce the paper. It's important to say there isn't one way to fix this. There are a number of strands, and the paper lays them out. And the Plymouth City Council's Family Homes for Plymouth Children programme has been established to improve practice, placement sufficiency and outcomes for children and young people in our care. We strongly believe that our children and young people should, wherever possible, grow up in a family setting with foster carers as close as possible to their home area in order to maintain relationships, stay in the same school, access their social worker, health and therapeutic services. This will also reduce pressure on the children's placement budget by increasing the proportion of children placed with in-house foster carers and reduce the number of young people placed in residential children's homes. Foster for Plymouth, Plymouth City Council's in-house fostering team, have revitalised and enhanced their approach to foster care recruitment in order to attract and recruit more foster carers and increase our in-house fostering sufficiency. So alongside the improved financial support and retention offer to our existing foster carers, the approach includes our work with the Regional Fostering Hub, which is going really well, and I go to their board meeting and the launch of Plymouth's first Mockingbird constellation, which happened a couple of weeks ago and was just such a wonderful event. And I want to say thank you to Helen and Titan, who up in Derriford, who gave us their conference room, which was packed with our foster carers and our young people, lots of cake, and it was the launch of our Mockingbird, our very first Mockingbird constellations, they're called, and that's a newish way of doing fostering, which really does help support retention and recruitment, because it's all about support and having a kind of central fostering a pair of foster carers who are there for sleepovers. A child needs to go to a dental appointment and another child needs looking after. That kind of family support that's normally available works in this Mockingbird way, and I think it's going to be really, really important for us, and I'm really thrilled that we've launched that. We've got increased innovative and creative marketing activity, and Mark, you mentioned about local businesses. I mean, I've just been completely blown away by local businesses who want to give us their time for nothing to support. They just want to help in some way. We've got 4 businesses at the moment working with us to look at our marketing strategy. So we've got Dartmoor Zoo, we've got Babcock, we've got YMCA, we've got Vosper's. Their marketing people and the chief executives of Dartmoor Zoo are helping us with their ideas, which I think is incredible. And our film that we're going to show and our fostering details are on the screens in Dartmoor Zoo's cafe. So it's lots of businesses are saying, what can we do? How can we help? And it feels like something's been unlocked in that area, and it's brilliant. And we're going to hopefully get more businesses involved and find ways for them to help. And so far it's been brilliant. So I'll just tell you a little bit about the film before we play it. It's a nationally produced fostering film called Everything, and we hope it's going to attract new foster carers and those considering transferring to the local authority from independent fostering agencies. And we're developing a local network of support through our partners, businesses and communities to widen our reach and utilise industry expertise to strengthen our marketing strategy as well as our recruitment and retention offer. This film is, we joined a partnership of councils and children's trusts across the country to produce this short film. It's nationally produced and professionally produced, launched nationally on the 17th of October at the Everyman Cinema in Birmingham. And I know that the Plymouth Arts Cinema is showing it for us at the moment. Through the collaboration, each participating local authority is provided with a branded copy of the film, some short clips and stills to use in our own marketing campaigns. Everything follows a fostering family and celebrates the long-term impact that fostering can have for everyone involved and the importance of relationships and connections that can be lifelong. Foster for Plymouth hosted a premiere of the film on the 18th of October, following up on the national launch. During the event, the film was screened and guests from the fostering community, children's social care partners and local businesses were privileged to hear from a group of care experienced in children and young people, as well as foster carers. And the children and young people that spoke to that room were just extraordinary. Daunting at the best of times to stand up in front of a room full of adults, but they just did it with such panache and flair, and actually really they talked to us about the perfect foster care. It was incredibly moving and powerful what they told us. Anyway, that's enough of me talking, because I think the film really does speak for itself. I think it's very moving. It's not manipulative. It's just a really direct, a direct showing of the impact you can have on a person's life if you foster them for the rest of their life. So, I think, Jamie, are you going to press play? Thank you ever so much.
Hold up, I think it's on.
Mike, I just wanted to wish you a very, very happy birthday. So good I can't be there in person, but I hope you have a wonderful day. We all do.
Mike, we can't believe you're turning the big 6-0. You don't look a day over 59. Zara!
Surprise! We proper fooled you.
You sure did.
Happy birthday, Dad.
Where are you doing, mate? Got plenty of veggie baggers today.
Don't worry, mate, we're on it, barbecue.
You know, it's hard to put things into words. But I'll try.
Pop down some dinner when you're ready.
When I first came to stay with you, I was so nervous.
We get plenty of sparrow, and maybe, if we're lucky, a goldfinch.
Can we go in now? I've had enough.
Ketchup?
Put it on the bun and not the burger. That's how my dad used to do it. It's way better.
Then email her.
But I have such great memories of that time,
Hey, you're a natural.
You're not a bad tea trader.
and I hope you do too.
Hey, you have got to see this. I found it in the loft.
Hold on, I think it's on.
Watch this, mate. I forgot we even filmed it.
Here we are, looking for exotic animals. Oh, up there. Yeah. Look at it! Something. Oh my god.
Yeah, nice straight peg.
Don't get it. What am I meant to do? He's stupid.
It's okay.
I'm starting to get the hang of this. I told you I don't get it. You're just stupid.
Well done.
Thanks.
I guess what I'm trying to say is I don't really know what would have happened to me without you.
It's hard to put things into words, but I'll try. Everything I've got, everything I have now, I look back and, well, for everything, thank you. Thank you.
That's amazing. Amazing. So, yeah, anything to add?
Karen wants to talk to us about
Follow that.
the cards
Yeah.
and the pens, and also about the Mood Bear project as well. Thank you.
I'll be brief. It turns out I probably should have put a tissue out instead of the cards, or as well as the cards. I've watched that multiple times now, and it still hits to the heart, doesn't it? Last Thursday we had our care experienced young people's You Can Do It awards, and we're surrounded by young people just like those two, a number of whom were there with their former foster carers when they were in their 20s, still very much part of their life. So although those are actors, that really is the true story of many young people. So it's quite it does touch you. If you watch it on social media, it will forever follow you, because the marketing activity is such, and it's beyond my level of understanding, that once you've watched it once, the sponsored advert just keeps coming up. So when you're caught off guard, the video clips start playing again and catch you again. So I'm really sorry, Councillor Dan, it will continue to hit you at the heart no matter how many times. So yeah, a couple of things to draw out. Councillor Lang has covered the majority of the report, but these cards are really important. They're small, they're not particularly costly for us, they represent really great value and they're highly sustainable. And the reason that I highlight that is on the back you have a QR code. You scan that, it takes you to the website. You then have all the information you need to start your journey in understanding fostering. The suggestion or the ask then is the next time you speak to somebody who may be interested in knowing a bit more, you pass them the card. You've got the link, so you haven't lost the information. They do the same, and then they pass it on. And that's a really important part of our engagement of the business community. Councillor Aspinall, I made a note as you were talking about the Thrive work there. You said, if we work together we will improve outcomes, and it's a good way of showing that. It's the same for fostering. So we need everyone to help us extend the reach. So we ask if you would mind taking that one card and starting the chain by passing it on to someone who might pass it on to someone else, and eventually it will hit someone who's interested in fostering. So that's the cards, and until a bit like your reusable carrier bag, they keep going until they completely disintegrate, and then we can furnish you with another, but we don't need very many to start with. And the other person that I wanted to introduce you to, which feels a little frivolous, but I think it's important, children and young people are at the heart of this, is Hope, our mood bear here. The Regional Fostering Hub is a group of 15 local authorities. It's actually 16, but the R's of Scilly sometimes linked with Cornwall and sometimes not. So 15/16. And each of us have been given one of these. They represent a number of different emotions, but overall hope. And hope will, within each local authority, be going on some adventures to follow the journey to become a foster carer. So we'll spend time at the Skills to Foster training, go to fostering panel, be there when a child starts their placement, and we'll use that within our activity in terms of a bit of a mascot. There's also a life-size one who we hope will join us at the awards next year and at some of our big events such as Armed Forces Day, because he's big and cuddly and will draw people to come and speak to us. So this is Hope's first outing. She joined us on Thursday. So if it's she or he, I keep alternating because we are not going to define a gender. We should say they. If Cabinet would be willing to have a photograph this afternoon with Hope, this would be their first outing, and we can use that in our coverage of Foster for Plymouth on social media and really kickstart her journey in helping us understand fostering.
Thank you. I don't know if I can just finish, Leader, by saying I just think that film, and I've seen it a few times too, and it hasn't lost its power for me yet. It is such a powerful demonstration of the impact somebody can have by making that decision to become a foster carer. And as somebody said at the launch of that film, foster carers make the impossible possible for our young people. And as Karen said, we saw that last Thursday night at our awards. You know, I've been to a lot of those awards now, so I'm seeing those young people growing up and what they're achieving and how they're doing, and it's really it's incredible. And yeah, so the film is really powerful, really impactful, and thank you very much for allowing us to show it. And I'm sure Cabinet will let us have a photo with Hope at the end. And if we can all I'm just going to put mine in my phone case, and when I'm talking to somebody that I think would like to scan the QR code, I'll use it then. And if you could all do the same, I'd be really grateful. Thank you.
Thanks very much indeed, Jemima. Any further comments or observations from the Cabinet? I think we're all a bit struck by the movie. I'll put it on the social media. Okay. I put it on the social media, and the LGA comms people picked it up and run with it. And, you know, I think the more people that see it, the better, really. Anybody who's got a social media account can help us with pushing that out, I think. Councillor Dan.
I just want to say thank you. I mean, when I was Lord Mayor, you see the fostering team everywhere. I mean, they are absolutely amazing at getting out into communities and talking and connecting. And you always see lots and lots of young people. And we've all been to, well, we haven't all been to those awards. For those of us who have been to those awards, it really brings to life what the role and the success of the foster parent has on the young people. And that film was, well, it was very emotional. But I also think then, as corporate parents, it brings it to life as to what we should be doing. So actually having these cards gives us something really, really proactive. And we need to make sure that all councillors have got them. So I'm assuming that when we go to full council, they'll all be on everybody's desk to pick up. And just to say thank you, it is hard because we know that, you know, we say that we need to do it for financial reasons, but actually the reason we need to do it and get it right is for the young people and the children. And that film was just really, really moving. So thank you.
Right, well, the recommendations are that, sorry?
Sorry, I was just double checking. We're going to show the film at council as well.
We could do that. That's a great suggestion.
I think we ought to.
Let's do that.
Not a dry house, eye in the house will be held.
Yeah. No, that's a great idea.
Thank you, Mary.
Thank you, Mary. So the Cabinet is being recommended that we support the recruitment campaign by sharing the promotional materials, spreading the word across networks and advocating for foster for Plymouth. Well, I'm sure we will do that, but I think what we also need to say is that we urge the council to do the same, don't we? I'm sure in other environments that staff are being encouraged so to do as well, right? Okay, so you mentioned you were working with partners. You've got a breakfast meeting, haven't you, coming up or something with Chamber of Commerce? Have I got that right? You're gonna go and
Yeah, Catherine, the team manager, and myself are going to, yes, that group in January. They couldn't fit us in before, but we're going the first week of January. We have a meeting this Thursday with the group that Councillor Lang spoke about, those 4 businesses who've now also been joined by 2 schools in Plymouth, so Marine Academy Plymouth and Heels School, who've expressed an interest in working alongside us. So that group is growing, and I think we probably recruited somebody else at the awards last week, and as Councillor Lang said, Helen and Titan have become quite strong advocates for us. Our Mockingbird hub carers, one of them works there, and their employer has supported us and is interested in becoming fostering friendly. So there's quite a lot of work being done to educate and work with our business colleagues about how they can support their workforce to consider fostering. In fact, it's today, so today, Monday, the Balfour BT have their monthly meeting with all of their subcontractors, and they're doing a piece around fostering and how they can be supported by them as employers as well. So it's really picked up a pace with our business colleagues, both supporting the work that we're doing by bringing their expertise around marketing and reach, which is great because we welcome everybody's ideas, but also in terms of reaching wider portions of our community who may not know anything about fostering, but when they do, they might discover that they're interested. So it's twofold.
Great, that's lovely. Thank you very much indeed. Don't forget, there's also, as well as the City Conversations thing, there is Devon Chamber of Commerce, which has now got even more members in it, and the Federation of Small Business and Plymouth Area Business Council. If you're not already doing
I stood in for you at Plymouth Area Business Council, and I did put fostering on the agenda
you
at
snuck
the
it
end.
in there, did
I
you?
did,
Okay,
and I'm speaking at
that's
churches together about it as well.
okay, it's great. Well, use whatever means at your disposal. I think that's the urgent. So can I see all those in favour of the recommendations, please? Thank you very much. Can I also see how many people are prepared to have their photo taken with a bear? Yes, sure, okay, that's great.
We have to give the bear back.
Okay, so I would say hang around till the end, and then we will do the bear. So next item is item 11, which is the corporate plan performance report for Q2. Now, this was a late arrival in the supplement pack, pages 55 to 92. and Ross has joined us. And first of all, though, Chris, I will ask you to introduce the report.
Thank you, Leader. Every time I present this report, I seem to start it with the same preface that we are trying to make our performance reporting better each time we do it. So each time this report comes before you, it's moved on another stage and it looks different than the one before. But that's a very planned thing. We're not doing massive change overnight. We're just incrementally doing bits that actually give us more valid information and better ability to be scrutinised and for us to be able to report what we're doing. So, as ever, this report represents not everything that the council does, but the very tip of the iceberg. If we were to produce everything that the council does, we would be swamped under boxes and boxes of papers if we printed them, or you'd be complaining that there was no space left on the website to put anything else because we put so much data there. But that robust performance management really matters, whether it's at very small team level through to directorates and the CMT, the scrutiny, and us at Cabinet. We're all continually looking at that, and scrutiny particularly use these, especially those looking at adult and children's work where our performance really matters. So our corporate performance team have compiled this from that wide range of sources. Where possible, we have now included comparators against England averages or the SIPFA comparator group, not just ad hoc, this is what they're doing in South Hams and West Devon. Much as that's great, it doesn't actually tell us a lot about how we're doing as a major city. So we've got all of that. We know that many performance indicators fluctuate substantially over quarterly or even half-yearly periods. So to provide a clearer picture of our performance over time, we're including data which in some cases predates the pandemic. And we've also refreshed the indicators to make them more meaningful and to ensure that we're able to take those forward on an ongoing basis. That'll enable comparisons with previous performance, enable us to identify patterns and to understand the context of past performance, as well as giving us clues about the future. Over the coming months, we'll be dedicating some resources to forecasting as our data management is all being improved and work done across the council on how we bring this into much more systematic and AI-informed processes of conglomerating all of our data. That'll also mean that we're much more able to talk about tolerance levels and where the patterns are going within what we would expect as a range rather than it just being a random line on a piece of paper. The report highlights the resilience and innovation that we as a council have been taking and continue to take in the face of challenging circumstances. And those challenging circumstances all beyond our control, whether it be COVID, whether it be international wars, whether it be national government decisions. But we as an administration set some priorities, and so those are the priorities that we are reporting on here. We've committed to working with the police to tackle crime and antisocial behaviour, prioritising community safety. Our community safety team has been working hard with the police in the aftermath of the August riots, and we have retained the purple flag for our evening and nighttime economy work. We're also working closely with partners to tackle antisocial behaviour in city centre car parks. We aim to see fewer potholes and cleaner and greener streets and improve transport. And we maintain excellent performance against works on the carriageway with 100% of, should he be here, Councillor Coker would insist I say, road defects fixed within agreed timescales. We would love to be able to fix every single defect on our highway, but unfortunately the £4 billion of national government funding spent on local road maintenance in 2006 was halved by 2019, limiting our ability to address every reported pothole immediately, or to do a whole range of proactive work we'd love to do. Deciding what can be built and where it is critical when it comes to deciding what can be built and where is critical when it comes to building more homes for social rent and affordable ownership. Our fantastic planning team maintain an excellent record in processing applications, with 100% of major development applications determined on time. The city is building new affordable homes for social rent, affordable rent and shared ownership. We've performed well against our SIPFA comparators and will continue to focus relentlessly on this issue through Plan for Homes 4, as homelessness remains a key risk for the council and the city as a whole. A comprehensive children, young people and families improvement plan was launched to address systematic issues and enhance service quality. This plan is subject to regular reporting here and to scrutiny. We have refreshed Plymouth's Economic Strategy 2024, a successor to Delivering Economic Growth 2020. Both strategies are key to delivering green investment, jobs, skills and better education. We're seeing some success with the number of under-25s claiming universal credit gradually declining and an increase in employment rates. The ability for pupils to access good and outstanding schools in Plymouth has increased to its highest level since the pandemic. We continue to work with the NHS to provide better access to healthcare and to dentistry. We've seen positive indicators of improvement, particularly in primary care, where 83% of patients are being seen within 2 weeks, compared to 63% in the spring. Unfortunately, this positive change has not been seen in dental care, where waiting lists continue to rise. All of our services must keep our children, adults and communities safe. The numbers of children in care or in need remain high, which inevitably impacts the budgets. We continue to strengthen collaboration between various agencies, including social services and health services, to address the needs of children and young people from multiple perspectives. In adult safeguarding, quarters 1 and 2 of 24-25 saw significant demand with 3,042 referrals. Priorities are particularly focused on cases involving self-neglect and the development of a more streamlined and integrated safeguarding pathway. Inevitably, much of the activity in all of these areas is beyond our control, and success that we are achieving demonstrates the importance of our ongoing priority of partnership work and a systems leadership approach across the whole city. Chair, there's much more that we could discuss. It is a meaty report with a lot of interesting data in it, and some of my colleagues might well wish to comment on their own areas. However, I'm also aware that they've all been facing scrutiny on this. They've answered questions in the chamber and with the press, and so they might feel that they've already spoken enough about it. However, that will be up to them. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed, Chris, for that comprehensive introduction to the report. Ross, is there anything from your point of view that members need to know about?
No, Chair, nothing further to add.
I mean, I have to say that the way the information is presented is really good and clear and all of that stuff. There is still one question I have for you, though, Chris Penberthy, which is when the arrows go that way, does that mean better necessarily, or does it mean if they go down? Correct. I mean, for the casual viewer, I mean.
If I pass over to Ross for the technicalities of, because I know in some reports they mean one thing and in other reports they mean another. So Ross, over to you.
Well, on that basis, I won't give a definitive answer, Councillor. So yeah, it really depends what indicator we're looking at, essentially. But if it's felt it's not clear enough, we can certainly go away and make some improvements, Chair.
Is the correct answer.
We have had this debate before. Continuation or an improvement or none. But so yeah, we've had that debate often in respect to this subject matter.
Shall we resolve from this day forth that we'll pick up on that and do something about it? Perhaps in time for the next time we have this discussion, for the Q3 report. What do we say? I'm sure if we all will it, or even resolve it, it will be done. So Chris said earlier on that all of you don't want to have any more questions. You've had enough questions. Is that something you profoundly agree with, or would you welcome any more questions?
We did go through this in detail in the planning discussions, so I think unless anyone has any burning issues, I think we've gone through it with officers and Chris in detail. So
it always does. It always does. I suppose the other bit, and somebody can help me with this, I'm sure, is my instant reaction to the electoral registration performance was joy. With 216,000 people being registered, is that right? Did I read that figure right? On the which is amazing. The other thing that I was going to ask on that, of course, yeah, 213,000 on page. Well, I don't know what page it's on because there aren't any page numbers on this one, but it's the trusting and engaging our communities. Now, forgive me, what does the 982,000 figure relate to, please?
I think a filter has failed on the dashboard, Chair, so that's an error. So it's about 200,000 rather than 900. What it's done is it's calculated 3 or 4 years rather than just showing you what the figure is today.
I just wanted you to know that I do read these things.
Yeah.
So, you know, before we publish, or if we could amend that so that it doesn't give a misleading impression. But there's some good progress in these numbers, I have to say. Okay, well, look, what we've asked to do today is to note the report. That is all we have to do today. So can I see all those in favour of noting the report, please? Thank you very much. We've done that. Thank you, Ross. We now move to item 12 on the agenda, which this time Councillor Lowry is going to do this one. Ross, though, will be on hand to answer any questions that we might have on this. So this is the Strategic Risks Quarterly 2 report, and this was in pages 93 to 108 of the supplement pack. Mark.
well, you'd be pleased to know there are no arrows in this document, so it might make it a bit easier in that respect. So we are looking at our quarterly update of our strategic risk register, and there are currently 18 risks in total. There, in respect to strategic risks, since we last reported this, 3 risks have been removed from the risk register, so that's good news, of course. The first being the lack of adult social care workforce. As reported previously, we had some instability in this area. We were struggling to recruit individuals to adult social care. That problem has now been significantly reduced, and we are able to remove that from the risk register. IT supply chain constraints, once again, those issues have been overcome and we have coped relatively well, particularly recently, and there's been a significant reduction in this risk and therefore we no longer consider it to be a strategic risk. And the third one being the senior management capacity, that was a strategic risk previously. As all of us around the table know full well, and there are lots of new faces here today, we've made tremendous effort in recruiting senior managers to the posts that were vacant, so that risk has also been removed. However, of course, we must always remain vigilant. particularly in respect, if you look at them, something that I'm always very keen to me, and you'll hear me constantly going on about, which of course is the council's expenditure, which we've discussed already previously today. And there is a risk there related to the impact of the planning reforms, which currently represent a bigger risk than we'd like, but portfolio holder along with officers are looking very carefully at those details coming out from central government and will provide us with an update shortly. A very important risk, and one that is probably never going to go away, but is cyber security. We've seen it impact a number of councils over the past few weeks, and we must remain incredibly vigilant to ensure that risk does not impact on the council. Also, we've discussed today health inequality. On a number of occasions, we've had this risk on our register, and it's appropriate that we do so. We've discussed it at length today and some of the actions being taken, but in addition to that, you'll also be aware that the Household Support Fund has been reapproved to Plymouth, so therefore we've got some additional funding that may be able to help in respect of that. And finally, there's a new risk that has been added in relation to what we refer to as a family of companies, and that's been added to the risk register to ensure that we have a focus on the compliance around our management of those companies that are external to us, and the new governance framework will ensure a stronger role for elected members, ensuring both political oversight and compliance with the Companies Act. Obviously, this is a dynamic document. It's a risk register, and we'll update it every quarter and bring it back to Cabinet for approval. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mark. Anything you would like to add at this point, Ross?
Not from me, Chair, no.
Thank you. Has anybody got any questions about this? Could I ask on civil protection, on the ERC backup power, it's got neither a amber, a red or a green, but a white box and a 0 on it. That's it's the 9th of the 11 pages. I don't know.
Page 9 of 11.
Yeah.
It's sorry, it's a new risk on the register, so it doesn't have a risk score for the last quarter because it's new.
Okay. And are we happy with that risk being amber rather than red? I mean, I mean, some of the words in that description are quite alarming, so I would normally expect to see that have a higher risk rating, to be frank with you.
I think we'll take it away and have a further look at it. That's all we can do. Obviously, a risk register is a series of views and opinions that are applied against a matrix. So we'll review that as part of our next upgrade.
Splendid, thank you. Similarly, Mark, I was looking at did you mention you said you'd taken some risks out of the register altogether. Could you remind me what they were again, please? Yeah.
Sorry. Adult social care workforce, IT-related supply chain constraints, and the corporate management team, the number of vacancies that were previously available, which have now all been filled.
I say they're not. We've got interims, haven't we? So therefore, I don't know how, Tracy, how we manage that within this figure. I mean,
so we do have a number of interims, but all posts are filled with very solid interim appointments. So I think that's why we downgraded the risk.
No, I think it's fair enough. What I was going to ask you though was about, I mean, the joy of doing well on risk management is that they're no longer risks.
No longer risks that would be on the strategic register, but beneath that is a whole series of other registers that capture lower level risk. These are, of course, strategic risks that have a potential significant impact on the council's finances or reputational ability.
Okay. I guess I sort of think that answers the question, but I was going to ask you on both of those integrated commissioning ones on page 11 of 11. you know, the numbers are very low in terms of the impact, and they're green, which means they're not a worry. So given the fact there's low impact and that we're holding the position, I just wonder why they continue to be there. There's no need if they're not worrying us at all. That's the whole purpose of this. This is a document about tackling the stuff that isn't going right or that presents us with a big problem.
So we'll certainly leave them on for at least 1 quarter, so you can review the mitigation which has got us down to that point. Which case, following that, they can come off and they'll remain on our operational registers for continual oversight.
Thank you, Ross. Okay, keep that and like that.
That's to ensure that when you see them come off, they're still there for one period of time, because you may not agree, because this report is here for your agreement. So if you do have any concerns, then we can look at them again.
Given the fact it's green and those are low numbers, I suppose you better be right. But I think you are right, and so you have a look at that as well, and about removing it in a quarter's time if we can. Okay, so the recommendations is that we note the report. Are we happy to note the report? All those in favour of noting the report? There we are, we've done that. Thank you very much, Ross. And now we move to item 13. This is Children's Services Update. This is in the supplement pack, pages 109 to 114. And Jemima is gonna take this, and Vivian is here as well, still with us, and Bear and Karen, to take any questions that we may have. Jemima, please.
Thank you, Leader. And given that Councillor Lowry mentioned the projected overspend at item 6, I want to repeat that we're doing this, bringing this report as a standing item to Cabinet, because we want to be open and transparent with people in the city about the challenges that we are facing around the children's services budget. Because we want people to know how difficult it is, and also the things that we are doing to try to tackle it. So this report provides an update on our Family Homes for Plymouth Children programme, which is in place in response to the significant financial pressure on our placements budget for children in care. Whilst the number of children in care is reducing in line with statistical neighbours, as a result of a national shortage of fostering placements, we have more children than expected that we have placed in residential and a small number in unregistered settings. In addition, the cost of residential provision has risen as a result of national sufficiency issues. And I say this all the time, I know, but I think it bears repeating. This is not just a challenge that Plymouth is facing, it's a national problem. Unregistered provision remains very, very high cost. The paper at Cabinet today sets out how the Family Homes programme is supporting our in-house fostering service, Foster for Plymouth, which we've heard quite a lot about today, to recruit and support more foster carers, particularly for children with more complex needs. In addition, an update is provided on the development of proposals for Plymouth City Council to open our own children's homes in Plymouth. And I want to talk a little bit about that because I'm particularly excited about the work that we're doing on this, and Vivian can tell you a bit more in a minute, but I just want to outline where we are. So as part of the Family Homes for Plymouth Children programme, agreement has been given to develop the business cases for Plymouth City Council to become a direct provider of residential care for children in 3 areas. Development of a hub providing residential overnight short breaks for children with complex health needs and disabilities as part of a wider support offer to families. Residential provision for children in care, and residential care for children with very complex emotional and behavioural needs to be developed in partnership with the ICB. This has been a long time coming, but it's, I think, a no-brainer on a number of levels, and I'm really grateful to the work of all the officers who've worked so hard to get us to the point that we're at, that Vivian can fill you in about. But if this goes the way that we want it to go, I hope there won't be any going back, and actually hopefully this will be only the start of beginning to provide some of our own residential provision, which hopefully will be better for our children and young people, will be better for our budgets, and enable us to keep more of our children in our city, which is always, not always, sometimes there are reasons why it's better if they're not placed in Plymouth, but if it's suitable for them to be placed in Plymouth, then this is going to really help us achieve our aims and goals around that. Thank you.
Hey, thanks very much for that, Jemima. Vivian, anything you'd like to add, please?
Thank you, Leah, and thank you, Councillor, for that introduction. It might sound a bit counterintuitive that a programme called Family Homes for Plymouth Children has a strand of work that is actually about developing institutional models of care in children's homes. However, given the national shortage of foster placements for children in care, we do continue to have 57 children placed in children's homes, of which 33 are not in Plymouth. And to enable those children to have a better chance of success of residential care being an intervention for a child when they need that high level of intensive support that enables them to step back into a family placement or indeed into their own homes. We believe that opening up our own homes in Plymouth gives us a much better chance of achieving that family homes aspiration for more of our children. The market currently nationally is incredibly challenging for fostering and residential provision, which is leading to the high cost pressures that we've been talking to you about in previous cabinets. And whilst our own in-house provision might not necessarily be significantly cheaper, it will enable us to deliver better outcomes for children. It will enable their time in residential care to be shorter than it is now and to enable better outcomes in the long term, because we can support them with our local health provision, our local schools, our local virtual school, and enable families, more children to be in family care. So this is part of the full spectrum of developments, that some of which we've already talked to you about today, and some more will be coming in coming months as we develop our fostering service even further to offer high needs models and emergency fostering models, alongside the residential proposals that we're talking to you about today and what the developments Karen has already spoken about.
Thank you very much indeed. Mark?
I've had the pleasure, and I mean that genuinely, of working with this team and going through some very difficult issues over the last few months, and I am delighted to see that we've taken, this is the first step actually, but an important step in taking back control from the market that are basically, in my view, stinging us for an awful lot of money, that we can do better ourselves for the reasons Vivian's eloquently set out there, and I would hope that there's some financial benefit in doing so as well. So this is the right thing to do. You on Wednesday will be presented with the business cases via the Capital Programme Board for the cost of providing these new homes in Plymouth and a respite centre for children in Plymouth. So we'll take you through the papers, but Wednesday we hopefully sign the papers, and this team are ready to go. They really are, and they're very excited about the prospects. So some really good news.
Chris?
Thank you, Leader. And at the moment, you're probably aware we're looking at our next 10 years worth of supported needs housing in the city. Traditionally, that's looking at ages 18 upwards. This year, we've asked for some extra work to be done to bring this work into that scope, because it means when we're looking at sites, we're looking at the need for our children and young people, as well as those people who hit their 18th birthday. And that's going to be really, really important. So I welcome this, because the work that's done here will feed into that specialist and supported housing needs assessment. The more we can pull things into one space to help us do our strategic thinking, the better. So this is a really positive thing from my perspective.
Thanks very much. Well, I'm looking forward to Wednesday. You know, as you know, I get to kick it off, really, which is, you know, always a privilege and a joy, as you know. You've got some more to add?
I only went.
I finished now. I'm waiting for, I thought you might have something, you know, which I need to.
No, I just think it's important to say that when we talk about children's homes, I think for people who don't know, aren't involved in the sector, I think it's important just to say it's not kind of a Jacqueline Wilson, Tracy Beaker type thing anymore. When we talk about residential children's homes, these are kind of 2-3 bedded houses which can create a family atmosphere. So I just think it's important to say, although we use the same language, actually they're quite different to what a lot of people's kind of rather outdated view would be of children's homes.
Okay. Well, that was useful clarification because, you know, for a lot of people, it'll have a different connotation to what you're actually talking about. So, you know, that's a useful intervention there. Thank you very much. Now, in terms of the business case, I presume the business case is going to have some mention of cost. Yeah.
Obviously, Jemima's signed off the mandate for the work. The officers have put a lot of work into the detail around the finances, which I've been through. And yeah, there's a very well set out case as to why this is an appropriate step to be taken. It's a big step, but it's still a early step in respect of, you know, we could provide potentially 20 of these, but that's not where we're going here and now. Let's start off modestly. Let's make ourselves comfortable, because we have to hire new people to work in this space that we previously haven't had, and there's going to be a lot of training and learning. So a modest but good step forward in taking back control of some of those very difficult issues and providing respite for foster carers, which, you know, we've had a big discussion today about the need for encouraging more. Well, sometimes they need a break as well, so this provides that opportunity for them to get a break as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm really, you know, like I say, we've been talking about this a while, so it's great to see that we're nearly at the beginning of the start of this project. So that's wonderful. So all we have to do today is to agree to note the report. So can I see all those in favour of noting the report, please? Thank you. But again, appreciate the amount of work that's gone into getting us to this position, Vivian, you know, and looking forward to Wednesday, as I said. Okay, that's that then. I'm now going to move to item 14, which is where I talk for a lot. But look, the reason for doing that is because there's a lot to talk about, isn't there? Let's start with what happened yesterday at the Remembrance Festival on the Hoe, the celebration, the commemoration. It was amazing. So I want to thank everybody involved. The staff done a great job. I mean, a lot of behind the scenes stuff that the public, and for that matter, councillors don't see. So I want to make sure we thank those properly, Tracy, because it was a great event. And there seemed to be more people than ever before. I don't know. I mean, whoever brought the weather, could I thank them as well? Because that was a bit better than last year, wasn't it? But it's always a special occasion on the Hoe, and I think, you know, there's not many places in the country that do it as well as Plymouth. So I think, you know, we need to remember that. Could I thank, though, Councillor Pauline Murphy, our Armed Services Champion, and Chris Penberthy as well, for their work on the poppies, the display. I think the city's been looking fantastic, and not only the council house, the Guildhall and the Civic Square. It's magnificent. And I don't know whether you noticed, but we also had poppies in Smeaton's Tower as well. And I met the person who put that up the other day, Geordie from Babcock. So I want to say a big shout out to him, actually, for making that impossible thing happen. So that was great. And we're hoping by even more forward planning that we'll be having the poppies on the outside of Smeaton's Tower this year. Although it worked beautifully where it was. Yeah. Did you want to say something? No.
Well, And the box team too, because the box
Oh,
team really, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I don't know what Councillor Penderthy and Councillor Murphy have planned for next year. I know I've had a couple of sneak previews of what they got planned, but they've already started planning for next year. It's been 6 months since the local elections, and it feels, after a slight pause for general elections as well, that we've hit a bit of a purple patch in economic development at the moment. On the back of our strong pipeline and £100 million grant funding that we've secured to spend over the next 24 months, it is, I think, always easy to take this stuff for granted. But having spoken to colleagues across the UK, which I do regularly, as you know, I can tell you that what we're doing here is not normal by national standards. It's exceptional by national standards. And I just wanted to remind you what we've managed to do in the last 192 days. I mean, this is a short list of a much longer list. My plan today is not to take you through the longer list because we'll be here till next Thursday. So I'm just going to do the short stuff. We've seen the completion of a £23 million investment in port facilities at Mill Bay. We've seen a £25 million community diagnostics hubs start on site. We have completed and handing over our £18 million investment in Derriford District Centre. We have committed all of our Freeport £25 million seed capital, the first Freeport to do so. We have submitted planning permission for our £7 million innovation barns at Ocean Gate. If you don't know what an innovation barn is, wait a few months. We have secured planning and completed procurement for our £8 million Beaumont Way direct development. And you know how quickly we occupy those. We've started the demolition of disused buildings in Tavistock Place to enable future cultural investment. We have kick-started our £10 million waterfront regeneration scheme starting on site at Tyneside, and we've now awarded contracts for the Mountbatten Centre's improvement scheme. And I was over there with the team last week, and they're all very fired up and ready to go. Basically, just in case you weren't adding that up, that's £120 million of development in the past 6 months alone, which is pretty fantastic. Now, we're making growth happen, and through this investment, we're not just supporting our businesses to grow, but we're also supporting the construction industry and a massive range of professional jobs here in the city. As you know, we're talking to a lot of people at the moment about defence and about flow and about the opportunities that this gives the city. We've completed our port strategy, and 2 weeks ago I took it through the scrutiny process, and I'm looking forward to bringing it here in the new year. But I did want to just give you a couple of sneak previews of that port strategy. Did you know that we have the greatest marine employment in the UK? 20,110 jobs. That's 19% of our jobs in Plymouth. And in terms of GVA, it's 22% of our GVA, right? That's £1.2 billion. So it's really, really important. Now, why is that important? Well, we're not believing that we're going to stand still. To 2030, we have the potential to grow this by at least 2,500 direct jobs and probably another 4,200 indirect jobs. Again, I'm looking forward to bringing this to Cabinet with the links to the work we're doing on defence. We have a once-in-a-generation opportunity for the city. I also wanted to say that we hosted the Marine Stewardship Council in the box last month. I mean, that was a real boost actually for the fishing industry. They're coming back, by the way. They want to come back because they had a great time. We had all the UK's top players in the city, and had a really good opportunity there to showcase what Plymouth has to offer. And we're going to be working with the Marine Stewardship Council in the next year or so on initiatives to boost fishing locally. This would be really, really important for our fishery. Interfish came up to me at the dinner and said to get the MSC to the city was a massive coup. For them, gave them an opportunity to meet all the UK buyers. So we had some really good chats. Right, that's probably enough. I can see on your faces you're satisfied with that. And now I'm going to ask if there are any members of the Cabinet who wish to give us updates. Jemima, anything from you?
There is, but I can't find it, so could you go to someone else?
Yes, anybody else like to give us an update? Chris?
Thank you, Leader. Just picking up on remembrance, on behalf of Pauline and I, we too would like to thank everyone who helped. Obviously, it's easy to focus on the Hoe, the Civic Square and the city centre, but businesses and community groups across the whole city have picked up the bug for doing their bit locally. So shopping centres across the city, post boxes with toppers, churches that really went over the top on making sure that they and their memorials and community memorials were well tended and well decorated. Clearly, crochet is alive and well in Plymouth, but also the impact on social media was enormous. People have really appreciated the fact that Plymouth remembered. And I think that isn't just in the really big service on the Hoe and the small services at memorials across the city over the last few days and today, but also all those small bits where people have done things, have made poppies, have decorated houses and have done all sorts of stuff. So Pauline and I would like to thank everyone in Plymouth, from the biggest businesses like Babcock to the young people in schools and individually who've done their bit too. It's fantastic. And yes, Pauline keeps on coming up to me and saying, I've got an idea. They are growing and she wants next year's to be even bigger and even better. So you've all been warned. Moving on, I'd like to talk a little about the aftermath of what are politely being called public disorder, but I think for those of us who witnessed it, it felt and looked much more like a riot in Plymouth on August the 5th. We have been awarded £600,000 by the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government to support communities affected by that night. Of this, £510,000 is designated for revenue and £90,000 for capital expenditure. We received 20 applications because we decided it wasn't about us spending the money, it was about how the community responded. Those 20 applications totalled £1.4 million. So a lot of ideas that surpassed the available funds by 137%. Applications were received and reviewed with a focus on 5 themes: pride of place, children, young people and schools, community cohesion, community events and recovery costs. The following allocations have been made to those themes, and all of the successful applicants, as well as those not successful, have been informed of this. Pride in place were allocated £90,114, that's 15% of the budget. Children, young people and schools received £77,012, that was 13%. Community cohesion received £389,874, 65% of the budget. Community events received £29,000, that's 5%, and the recovery costs £14,000, that's 2%. The majority of the successful applicants were small voluntary sector organisations with the background of delivering services here in Plymouth. The offer of this grant will be subject to their compliance of the conditions of the grant, including establishing agreed key outcomes and milestones for their projects with the council. Once we've done all of those next bits, we'll make sure everyone knows exactly who's doing what. In addition to this, as the council is committed to ensuring maximum impact for the city, it's also requiring that the successful organisations work collaboratively where appropriate to maximise the impact of the fund and avoid duplication. As part of the decision-making process, you will know, because some of us sat in a room together, that we wanted to set up a small grants programme, a small community grants programme, and we asked for a panel of independent City Council employees from the global majority to look at that, and they have been through the whole of the grant programme, and we have accepted their recommendations, which includes setting up that small grant programme, totalling £46,000, which will allow individuals and organisations not already awarded funds to apply for grants of up to £4,000, especially in support of community cohesion across the city following the impacts of August the 5th. Because we have to spend the money quickly, and we put an extra round in to enable those who didn't apply or felt it might not be for them because it might be too small, the deadline for applications is quick. It's 5 p.m. on Monday the 25th of November, and late submissions won't be accepted because we need to turn this round really quickly. The grants will be in alignment with the fund's purpose, and applications will be reviewed by that same independent panel that we set up to do the work. So I would encourage people to apply if they think that that's appropriate. Details will soon be going on the council website. We've only signed all of this off this morning. If you can't find them there, email me. My council email address is available on the council website. I'll pass it on to the relevant team. But we are really keen that small groups who can support community cohesion in the city, across the whole city, or in a patch of the city if it's having big impact, are able to apply for those small grants. As I said, we'll come out with more details of that soon, but I think that's really positive news. I'd like to thank MHCLG. I'd also like to thank the council contractors and parts of the council who've agreed to take less than they would have liked for recovery costs in order that we could pump more money out to community groups across the city. That's the right decision. It's a tough decision for us financially, but we wanted to make sure that this money was predominantly spent by community groups in the city, and I'm really pleased that we've been able to do that. Thank you, Leader.
Great, thank you for that update, Chris. That's really good. Great news. Do you mind us find our notes? Over to you.
Thank you, Leader. I want to start off talking about the box autumn season, which opened on Saturday, 19th of October, which is themed around land, sea and sky. The exhibitions on show include a number of works by JMW Turner and contemporary artist Ingrid Pollard, who was shortlisted for the Turner Prize in 2022. And I'm also thrilled to say that we've got the work of Via Selmans, which will also be on show. Her practice involves intense observation of nature, and I don't know if anybody's seen her stuff yet, but it is absolutely stunning. You could stand in front of it for hours. Alongside all of these, there's a new film by Paul Rooney called Broken Token. Paul worked with veterans on this commission, which includes a collaboration with folk musician Hannah Martin and archive material from the box. It's a very powerful film. There are also new displays to mark the 200th anniversary of Devonport, which it's an absolutely fascinating exhibition. I'd recommend anybody, whether you live in Devonport or not, but probably particularly if you live in Devonport, to go and see it. It's absolutely fascinating. And also we've got an incredible installation, which you might even call timely, by an artist called Osman Yusuf Sada, called When Will We Be Good Enough? There's a whole, I'm not going to spoil it for you, there's a whole load of elements to it, but there's 3 busts of Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos and Mark Zuckerberg, which are overlooked by busts of 16th century elites from our collection. its official opening is on Friday night, but you can already go and see it at St Luke's. And I know we've talked a bit about the You Can Do It Awards, which we had last Thursday for our care leavers, but I just wanted to say that it really was a wonderful evening. And I think you'd agree, Karen, we had more of our young people than we've had there ever before. We also had a representative from the business community again who came, who really wants to work out how he can get involved in supporting our care leavers and our young people. And I really want to say thank you to Karen and to the participation team, because the effort that they put into those events is incredible. No detail is left out. You can see how much work it is. And the atmosphere there on Thursday was just, I don't know, it was really, really special. It was a brilliant night. And of course we had Josie's disco, not silent this time. And yeah, I just want to acknowledge the huge amount of work that goes into making that such a special night for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Jemima. Okay, anybody else? Sally Hay.
Thank you, Leader. First of all, I'd like to just start really from last Tuesday night, which was bonfire night. Even with our tight budgets, we made our promise that we were going to do bonfire, which was absolutely fantastic. The event was a wonderful experience. We're estimating that we probably had about 24,000 people who attended. So this was a free event for people of Plymouth. Also, we have next week starts our antisocial behaviour awareness week. It'll be running from the 18th of November to the 24th. This year its aim is to encourage communities to stand together against antisocial behaviour. The week will also highlight actions for those experiencing antisocial behaviour and how we can help them and give them the right support that victims might need. We also have the library service was very successfully bidded to the Arts Council England and was awarded £5,000 to run a project titled Let's Read Together Books for early years setting, aimed to benefit children's age under 3 years old. The grant will pay for books that will be handed out over to nurseries where parents and carers can borrow them so that they can share reading at home with their children. This will also help with speech and language as well to prepare children from school. And Leader, it's that time of year again. 14th of November this week, we have the big switch on. Our Christmas lights go on. So the piazza will all start from 3 o'clock, where we will have Christmas songs being performed. We've got lots of different stuff going on. And the main event starts at 4 o'clock though. And on the piazza we have Plymouth Argyle Football Club, and it's the ladies team will be kicking starting this year. That was a bit of a mouthful, wasn't it? To do the switch on. And we also have Snow White will be attending, who is at the Theatre Royal Pantomime, and obviously our very own Lord Mayor. So that's this Thursday. I must say also the evening will be ending with a live performance from Joey and the Lips, which I know is a good old swing test for us older ones. And on Saturday we have the Barbican switch on lights as well. So we're all starting now. Christmas is... Don't be a Scrooge, but no, Christmas is certainly upon us now. So I shall leave it at that one. Thank you, Leader.
Brilliant. Well, that does sound like quite an exciting start to the festive season, does it not? Okay. Anybody else want to say anything? Sally Crosser, I'm looking at you.
I didn't have an announcement as such, but I just wanted to follow on the really important piece of work that Sally's talking about there with the reading and getting children involved and parents involved, just to sort of plug yet again, is that we have the Dolly Parton Imagination Library, which is functioning in Ham Ward, Devonport Ward, St Peter on the Waterfront and St Budo, and that is specifically, it's for children aged 2 up to the age of 5, and all children of that age in those wards are entitled to, which actually happens is they receive a book in the post directed to them, all administered by the Dolly Parton Imagination Library, supported by some of our incredible charities in the city. And I just wanted to give it another plug, mainly to encourage parents and community and such to apply. So thank you very much for giving me that opportunity again, Sally.
Just asking you about that, I mean, could you give us a sense of how the council are promoting that, and is there anything we ward councillors can be doing at the moment?
We promoted it by, we had a launch with the Lord Mayor. We've got things like, for example, the family hubs, obviously very, very involved. We have, and I've worked with Councillor Mary Aspinall on this, we've got health visitors involved as well. But I think there's, and some of the local councillors have also been very involved, very proactive as well. You know, it's one of your ward is actually one of the wards involved, and I know that Councillor Kate Taylor has been very involved, very proactive. I think as much as we can do to try and push it and get that out, because there's a lot of support out there. It's an easy application. It can be done online quite simply, and we've actually had, I think there's been health visitors and other people in the community and family hubs and all sorts actually helping where it's necessary for. It's a simple application online to actually apply.
A daft question, but I've got to ask it. Obviously, we're not using schools, or are we? Because, you know, in a typical school now, you may have children there who are not from those geographical areas. The school might be in that area, but the children aren't. So are we using schools or not using schools?
What there has been is some of our nursery provision within the city has been quite involved in this. For children, I think, who are living within, and don't quote me on this, for children who are actually in the wards themselves, that is a free, it's free, but the actual cost of the administration such as this is £28 a year, and I think, I'm doing this on live, aren't I? But is actually, so parents, I think, outside of actually living within those wards can also apply as well, but I'm not absolutely certain about that. But the important thing most of all is actually about getting that information out. I should have actually brought my little leaflets and things with me. Is getting that information out and publicising it really as much as possible, as much as we possibly can. And obviously it's being done within local communities and in some cases schools involved, because you have, for example, there's Ham Nursery and such, which is actually, you know, early years setting, which is actually within one of the wards that it relates to.
Okay, and there of course are private nurseries as well as ones we run.
Yes.
Presumably we're working with those as well. So thank you for that. Tom, did you have anything this time? Sue, did you have anything?
I do, and it links perfectly with what we were talking about Thrive Plymouth earlier. Plymouth Active Leisure have been running a small pilot with the Wolseley Trust, working with their social prescribers. So they have developed an 8-week programme where people can be referred to for health reasons. So if they want to be more active, it might be because of mental health. It could be because they are socially isolated. And what happens is they work with a health professional, which is their social prescriber, but also somebody at Plymouth Active Leisure to develop a tailored activity programme just for them. So these are people who wouldn't normally partake in activity. And it is for health reasons, but it's not the normal coronary disease or diabetes. It's for a much wider approach, encourage people to be active. A week or so ago, they launched it because it's now going to go wider. So Plymouth Active Leisure are now working with the YMCA, and they will also be working with Plymouth Argyle Community Trust once Brickfield comes online in the new year, because they can show that by having this really quiet, tailored support, it encourages people to be active, and then they will continue to be active afterwards, and they can join either the YMCA or PAL at discounted rates to take them on their health journey. The reason I'm bringing it here is because I talked about this collaboration. So Live Well are now on board, and also Devon Mind. So what's happening is that the social prescribers will pick people up, they can refer, and when a person turns up, they don't have to go through all their history. They can just turn up, the information will be passed on to them ahead of time, and they can take part. And just to show how enthusiastic about this, I'm not going to mention which cabinet members, but I have got another couple of cabinet members who are going to join me at actually trying out the programme, because there are at least three the ones who are giggling have probably let themselves open for this, who all have I'm going to say a physical issue, hips, knees, backs, and we're going to try it because there's a boost programme where you can have 8 weeks of a boost program in the swimming pool where it tailors the exercises specific to your physical need. So we're actually going to put ourselves forward. I haven't mentioned them, but they've both giggled. And we're going to put ourselves forward as sort of as trials to see how that is, because I think if we can do it and it works, we then become advocates for this program about people to get us to do something which is active and different to what we would normally do. And it's called Active Health. I mean, they've got a great team up there, and it is a collaborative, again, it's one of those collaborative programs where it's not going to cost a lot of money, but the outcomes from getting people active are going to be amazing, and we're going to test it. So I'll come back in the spring when we've actually done our boost program. But it is really good. And I think, you know, following on from what Ruth was saying earlier about Thrive Plymouth, it just shows what you can do if you've got the right mindset to get people to work together.
Well, this all sounds very fantastic, doesn't it? And
then you could join us then, Jude.
Yeah,
I won't take you in the sea yet, so I'll get you in the pool first before I get you in the sea.
Yeah, that's ever so kind. Ever so kind. Moving swiftly on. So, Mary, is there anything from you today?
Thank you, Leader. I'm not too sure how this fits into what Sue's making you all do, because I want to say that next week is Adult Safeguarding Week. Now, I'm not too sure whether Sue breaches that with what she's planning for you all. But it's a national thing, and we're looking at the dates of the 18th to the 22nd. And as we've said before, everyone has the right to live their lives free of violence, fear and abuse. This week gives us a great opportunity to remind people that safeguarding is everyone's responsibility. So if you're concerned about an adult, whether it's that they are being abused or neglected by someone who is meant to care for them particularly, or that they are struggling and neglecting themselves, please speak up. It's important that we do our bit to look out for one another. Members of the public should contact Plymouth City Council on the 01752 668 8000 number to report a concern. And we have now a triage system that has been working really well, and I want to compliment the staff that have been manning that, or personing that rather than manning that line. But there's also a referral form on the Plymouth City website, and I'm not going to read out to this, but we will make sure that that's published in the notes. It's one of these HTTPS ones that goes, the string goes on and on and on. And if you're a professional and would like advice or guidance about a concern, again, please call, but this time it's the 01752 304403. let's make a difference and let's make sure that we're safeguarding people in Plymouth. Thank you.
Terrific. Okay, I think I've been round everybody now, haven't I? So that means I have to thank you all for your updates. Sorry. I've got one more, which is a quick roundup of LGA stuff. Councillor Louise Gittins, the chair of the Local Government Association, she's coming to Plymouth beginning of next month. We're having a meeting with her over dinner, and then she's off to all the other local authorities in Devon the following day. So it's quite an amazing sort of, not even a 24-hour visit, but it's brilliant to have a chair of the LGA coming to Plymouth. Many promise to come here, but very few ever do. So I'm particularly looking forward to this, and I know Devon, she's meeting Devon County, she's meeting Torbay, and she's meeting Devon Districts on the following day as well. So that's brilliant news, and obviously an opportunity for us to raise concerns, but also do a little bit of boasting as well, which I think we're entitled to do. I just wanted to make sure that we recognise the LGA has been very clear about thanking the government for the extra funding to continue children's social care reforms, to pilot the kinship allowance. And I have to say this move towards prevention, which is very welcome, does rely on there being more headroom. So, you know, a start for the 600 million that was announced in the budget, but what we have to do, obviously, is continue to make the case that social care, children's social care in particular, needs a huge funding boost, and hopefully in the spring we'll get some good news about that. Also, the LGA are calling for fundamental reform of the SEND system, focusing on improving inclusion in mainstream settings, which is something that this council's long supported, and I know that sometimes can be difficult, but actually it's the right thing for most children, not every child, of course. The government, the LGA are also saying that the greater funding certainty through multi-year settlements and more clarity on financial reform. Again, the LGA are lobbying hard with the government to make sure that they're going to keep to that pledge they made about the 3 years, and that there's more clarity on financial reform. I mean, we're also lobbying for greater protection for local authorities as a consequence of some of the decisions made in the budget. So you mentioned earlier on, I think, the national insurance thing. Now, we've had protection along with a number of public sector organisations for our element of that, in the sense of our staff. But clearly, for a lot of local authorities these days, they haven't got as many in-house services as they used to have. So they've contracted with a load of people outside who will have those extra costs to bear. Now, again, nobody's arguing that, you know, that this was overdone. I mean, the tax burden, you've got to remember that the tax burden that is under the Tories got the highest level, I think, for 70 years, wasn't it? The point is, though, that that money wasn't making its way to improving public services. And so, you know, what is clear is, you know, the commitment on the NHS is brilliant. Whether we'll get quite the same in our part of the public sector is debatable. But I think what the LGA will continue to make the case is that local government's got the potential to deliver a lot of what the government want to do. But we must make sure that we're not constantly spending all our energy and creativity on surviving, right? So getting some headroom back into into our budgets is urgent. In fact, 1 in 4 councils, 1 in 4 are saying they might need exceptional financial support in the next 2 years. 1 in 4, right? That's huge. That's counties as well as small districts. So, you know, the LGA continues to make sure that the Treasury understand where local government as a sector is right now. Yeah. So, by the way, where did that survey come from? That was council chief executives that were surveyed for that. So it must be true, right? Okay, so in other news, the LGA are supporting the government's smoke-free generation ambitions. And we heard earlier on about smoking. We've made good progress on smoking in Plymouth, but there's more to do. We are running a campaign on a career in local government. It's called Making the Difference, and basically it's getting people to see that actually after years of contraction, the local authorities will be growing, and there are careers and there's plenty of opportunities for people. So we're running a campaign on that. Having just said that, an example of why we need to get on with that is the adult social care workforce crisis. I know we talked about senior levels earlier on, but actually nationwide there's a real shortage. So the LGA are going to try and run something nationally on that. Finally, the ask on children's social care is basically to fully fund councils to deliver on their responsibilities for vulnerable children. So that'll be a big campaign from all parties on the LGA. Okay, so that's all I've got there for today. I think we're finished. And I've got to say thanks very much indeed to everybody for today. Some good news actually today, a lot of good news, and the start of some really important things, I think. So thank you for your attendance, and we'll see you soon. Thank you.